Hi, my name is Justin, aka Ghost Reader, and I am on a roll today. This is going to be my third video today. I am racing the sun because I depend on natural light for my lighting. So here we are. We're going to be doing my April TBR, which is late. I usually do this in the preceding month, but I haven't really had the time to. And I probably won't have the time to in the future, in the coming days, and I want to get this out soon. So let's dive right into what I have to read for the month of April. So as you know, I read a fiction book, a non-fiction book, a book of poetry, which I just decided to do last month, and a graphic novel are my four mandatory books. And since this is a new quarter of the year, I also will be doing a new quarterly read. So that's what I'm going to be showing off today. And my fiction read from the month is 12 Kings in Sharakhai by Bradley P. Bolu. So basically, I've already started reading this book. I'm 100 pages in, and basically this book talks about, it's about a woman, I should say, named Cheda. And Cheda basically is an assassin who, she's not an assassin. Let me get this right. She is a fighter, actually. She's a fighter in the pits in the city of Sharakhai, which is this great city in the desert. And this city is ruled by 12 kings, and these 12 kings are immortal. And basically they in the past, when the city of Sharakhai was just starting, the rulers of the tribes basically didn't like the fact that the people were settling in the city and not roaming the desert in their last they did before. And basically the kings of Sharakhai were not paying tribute to them, so they decided to attack the city. So in return for the gods' help, these 12 kings they praised the gods for help. The gods helped them, but now as a payment for that, throughout I think every 6 weeks, on one particular day at night, these, I'm going to call them beings because I'm not exactly sure what they are yet. These beings roam the streets and they go into people's houses and they take people for offerings to the gods, for the kings. So Cheda basically is out on one of these nights when she's not supposed to be, because she's not supposed to be out on that night, and she discovers something that kind of leads her down this rabbit hole, basically to find out what is going on and what is truly happening on this night, and with the 12 kings of Sharakhai, who she has a personal vendetta against because they had a role in killing her mother. So far it's been pretty good. I like the world and the characters so far. This is my first fantasy book of the year, my first fantasy book in a long time, and it's really good so far. It's the first in a series of 3 books, and there's also a prequel, which I just found out. So if its book continues to be as good as it is now, then I'll definitely be picking up those books as well. So for my non-fiction read in the month, I will be reading The Tragedy of Liberation, A History of the Chinese Revolution from 1945 to 1957 by Frank Dikötter. I think that's how you say it. So basically, Frank is talking about what happened after the Chinese Civil War. Chairman Mao, or soon to be Chairman Mao, has now taken over China. The communists are now in control, and basically he talks about what happens in between the period of 1945 to 1957. This is actually book 1 in a trilogy as well that talks about China and the changes that happened in communism from I think it goes from 1945 up until the end of the 20th century and possibly into the 21st century. So I know a little bit about the history of communism in China, but not a lot. So this basically will be my first foray into reading about it, and I hope that Frank does a really good job at telling me about what happened in that period, because it is essential to understanding how China became what it is today. For my graphic novel reading of the month, I'll be reading After Death, which is basically came out as a series of 3 books. They're short, like magazine, basically magazine books. They're basically were sold as comic books, and they're by Scott Snyder and Jeff Lemire. I don't know a lot about these books, but I really like Jeff Lemire's work. I've read Royal City on here. earlier this year. So I picked up these three books, which are collected as one book, which came out not too long after they released these three. So basically, After Death is about a world, basically about a guy who's living in a world in which humans have found a genetic way to stop people from dying. And from what I've heard, this book looks at how humans have coped with that, and how this one man in particular has coped with that, and how what consequences that has had for mankind and for him on a personal level. So I really like Jeff Lemire's work. I heard good things from Scott Snyder too, that he's done some great things as well. So I'm really looking forward to reading this and telling you guys all about it when I'm done. So for my poetry read of the month, which I didn't even know was poetry until I found it in the poetry section at the Barnes & Nobles, is the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. So basically, these are the famous, I think there are 29 tales. I forget how many tales there are in total in this book, but this is a collection of tales that he wrote, in which basically there's this competition, if I remember correctly, for a free meal to the person that can tell the best story. And basically, the people sit around this table at this inn in England at I think it's the 12th or 13th century, begin to tell these stories. And this has come down as a classic of English literature. I've read part of it when I was in high school, but haven't read all of it. So this will be my first time reading it in its entirety. Unfortunately, it was an unfinished work. Chaucer died before he finished it, but it gave us a chance to look at what life looked like in the Middle Ages in England. So this was I look really forward to reading this and telling you guys about it as well. I've always wanted to read the Canterbury Tales, but never found an excuse to do so, and now I have. So I am quite excited to be reading this. All right, and so last but not least, I will be introducing my quarterly read for this month, and well, for the next 3 months. So that's for April, May, and June, and I hope to actually finish this book this time within those 3 given months. So this month marks the beginning, marks the beginning of a war that began 400 years ago. And it just so happened that I had this book. I bought it a while ago and hadn't really read far into it. I always kept putting it down. But I have here the 30 Years' War, Europe's Tragedy. So 400 years ago this month, this war began and lasted from 1618 to 1638. One of the most devastating wars in Europe's history. It's up there with like World War II. It's estimated that, if I'm correct, estimated about 40% of Germany's population died during this war. It was a mix of like political and religious fight that included Germany, France, the Holy Roman Empire, Sweden, Denmark, a whole bunch of other countries as well that I can't think of at the moment. But basically, it was a battle royale for supremacy or influence in Europe. And so I have read some of it. It is kind of a dry read from what I've read, but I bought this book. I paid money for it. I wish to read it. If I don't finish it, I don't finish it, but I'm going to make a really good attempt at finishing it this month. So hopefully, well, not this month, but in this quarter. So hopefully at the end of June, I will be able to say that I read this book, or it will say like it was bad, it was terrible, and I couldn't read it, and I DNF'd it. But we'll see. I don't know much about the 30 Years' War, and so it'll be a really good chance to learn something I haven't really learned about before. So that's it for me for the month of April. I really look forward to reading all these books, and I really look forward to reading the Canterbury Tales, because I've always wanted to read it, and I'm going to attempt to do that this month. So if there's any books on here that you've read or are going to read, please comment down in the comment section below. If you like this video, please hit that like button. If you want to see more videos from me, please subscribe and follow me on Twitter at GhostReads28, which is also down in the description box below. And as always, keep reading.